Welcome to the Ashtour Project Site Manager training video for the Georgia Department of Transportation, presented by Infotech Inc. This training video is entitled Getting Started in Site Manager Materials and LIMS. I am Pamela Gretter, Senior Training Manager for Infotech. The Site Manager Materials and LIMS application helps manage and track the materials, sampling, and testing needs of departments of transportation and their construction projects. LIMS stands for the Laboratory Information Management System. Site Manager is owned by AASHTO, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. Site Manager Materials and LIMS integrate seamlessly to streamline the sampling and testing workflow from recording a sample through to reviewing and authorizing samples. Depending on group security in Site Manager, you will have access to one or more of the LIMS functions. For your group, GDOT provides access to the icons highlighted in blue. To capture the sample details and assign tests, you will create a sample record in the Site Manager Sample Information window. You can find existing sample records in the Find Sample area. After you assign tests, the sample may be received in the Destination Lab and Lab Unit where tests will be performed in LIMS. Tests are performed and the test results are entered into the system in the Enter Test Results area of LIMS. Completed tests are available for review in the Review Tests area. Lab supervisors and lab managers can review test results, mark tests as complete, or return tests to the tester with questions. After all tests for a sample have been reviewed and completed, the sample record will be available for review and approval in the Review Samples area. Lab managers can review test results, and if necessary, tests can be returned to the test reviewer or lab with questions. At any time in the process, lab supervisors and lab managers can monitor the test assignments and add or cancel tests in the Maintain Test Queue window in LIMS. And you can access all available information about samples with the View Only Sample Information window in LIMS. This training video is entitled Getting Started in Site Manager Materials and LIMS. In this video, you'll receive instructions about the general use and navigation of Site Manager Materials and LIMS, including the following topics: starting Ashtour Project Site Manager, understanding Site Manager security groups, navigating in Site Manager, using Site Manager toolbars and menus, changing your Site Manager password, using attachments in Site Managers, and starting Site Manager LIMS. At GDOT, you will access Site Manager and LIMS through Citrix. Log on to Citrix following the instructions provided to you by GDOT. You will then log on to Site Manager via GDOT's virtual applications. For today's training video, I will log into GDOT's customized Site Manager training environment containing GDOT data and customizations that GDOT has developed for non-agency material users. So to log into Site Manager, I will double-click the Site Manager training icon. This is where I'll enter my user ID and password. So my user ID is Train01, that happens to already be in there from my last login. And in the password field, I'll type the word pass in lowercase letters. Both the Site Manager user ID and password are case sensitive. You must type them the same way every time you log into Site Manager. GDOT does not use the Connect To field, so we'll always log into the server. And please note that there is a Logon button, a Change Password button, and a Close button on the dialog box. I'll talk about changing the password shortly, but let's talk about the Close button now. If you enter the incorrect user ID or password when logging in, Site Manager will give you an error message. If you receive 3 errors in a row when logging in, Site Manager will disable your account. 3 strikes and you're out. So if you receive 2 errors in a row when trying to log in, click this Close button and that will allow you to start over. If you do disable your account, contact the GDOT Solution Center to reset your password and reactivate your account. So we are ready to log into Site Manager, so I'll click the Log On button, or I can press the Enter key on my keyboard. Site Manager displays our available groups for security. The security groups you are assigned to determine the functions and records you have access to in Site Manager. Most of you will belong to only one security group. If you are assigned to only one group, you will not see this window. Site Manager will open directly when you log on and display the Site Manager panel with the functions available to your security group. If you are assigned to multiple security groups, Site Manager displays this Available Groups window, and you must select a group each time you log on. You will select the appropriate group assigned to you by GDOT. For training, I'll log on to the Vendor, Producers, and Labs group. Highlight that row and click OK. Your user ID is your digital signature and is tracked throughout everything you do in Site Manager. It's important not to give your user ID or password out to anyone and to only log into Site Manager under your own account. So from the Site Manager main panel, we can navigate to the components of Site Manager that you have access to based on your group by double-clicking the icons. When I double-click the Materials Management icon, Site Manager displays the Materials Management tab with icons for the tasks that are available for me to perform for my organization and group. I will double-click the Sampling and Testing icon, and now I see a set of icons for the tasks that I can perform in Site Manager. When I double-click the Sample Information icon, Site Manager opens the Maintain Sample Information window. We'll come back to this window later. But for now, let's look at the Site Manager toolbar. The toolbar contains buttons that perform certain functions in Site Manager, similar to Windows functions. Site Manager can display labels on the toolbar buttons, which is handy to use until you become comfortable with them. Let's do that now. Place your cursor over the gray area on the toolbar to the right of the buttons, click the right mouse button, and select Show Text. You will need to do this each time you log on to Site Manager if you want the labels to appear, as they do not remain active once you log off the system. Site Manager will also display pop-up labels when you hover the cursor over the toolbar buttons. Site Manager also has menus that contain options equivalent to many of the buttons on the toolbar. If I click the File menu, you can see that this contains many of the same items as are available on the toolbar buttons, such as Open, Close, New, Save, and others. The toolbar buttons and menu options will vary depending on the window you are in. I'm going to click on the Services menu. This contains Site Manager and LIMS specific functions, such as remarks, attachments, copy sample, and more. The Services menu options will also vary depending on the window you are in. Let's go to the Help menu. The Help menu contains options to access the online help for Site Manager. I'm going to click on the Current Window option, and Site Manager displays the online help screen for the Maintain Sample Information window. That's the window I currently have open. The Maintain Sample Information window has multiple tabs. On the help screen, notice that many of the blue underlined entries correspond to the tab names. These are links to further online help screens for each of the tabs and field definitions for each tab. To close the help window, click the Close button on the upper right corner of the screen. Site Manager follows the same principles of closing a window versus exiting an application as other Windows applications. When I click the Close button on the toolbar or the File menu, Site Manager closes the Maintain Sample Information window, but I'm still logged into Site Manager. When I'm finished working in Site Manager and want to log off the application, I can click the File menu and the Exit option. Let's talk about changing your Site Manager password. When you're first assigned a user ID at GDOT, the default password will be the word password in all capital letters. The first time you log into Site Manager, or if you have to reset your password, you'll be prompted for your user ID and password. Your first action will then be to change your password. After your initial log on to Site Manager, you'll be automatically logged on via Citrix. So I will double-click the Site Manager training icon on my desktop and log back into GDOT Site Manager Training, this time as user train02. And I'm going to change my password. The password must be 8 characters in length using either letters or numbers, but with no special characters. And remember the 3 strikes you're out rule I mentioned earlier. If you get 3 errors in a row while logging in or changing your password, Site Manager will disable your account, and you can contact the GDOT Solution Center to reset your password and or reactivate your account. So I've entered Train02 in my user ID field. In my password field, I'm going to type the word pass in lowercase letters. That's the password I've been using. And I'm going to click the Change Password button. Site Manager opens a dialog box in which I can change my password. In the old password field, I'll type the word pass in lowercase letters again. And now in the new password field, I want to type my new password. I'll use the word train, T-R-A-I-N, in lowercase letters. In the confirm password field, I need to type my new password exactly the same way, train in lowercase letters, and click the OK button. And Site Manager has changed my password for user Train02. In the Available Groups window, I'm going to choose Vendor, Producers, and Labs. You will select the appropriate group assigned to you by GDOT, and click OK. And Site Manager has logged back on to the main panel. Site Manager also provides an Attachments feature, which allows you to attach electronic files to sample records in Site Manager. The attached files become part of that record and are available to all users from your organization who have access to the contract and sample. GDOT's policy is to only attach Adobe Acrobat PDF files. So let's go in and make an attachment. I'll double-click my Materials Management icon, double-click Sampling and Testing, and double-click the Sample Information icon so that I go in to create a sample record. Now I want to look at an existing sample record, so I will click the Open button, and I'm going to sort my list by sample ID. I'm looking for a particular sample, so I'm going to click in the Find field, and I want to type REC-D. In capital letters, I'm looking for a sample that contains REC-D in its sample ID. This field is case sensitive. So I have found the record I'm looking for, the sample that ends in REC-D. I'll highlight that and click the OK button. On my toolbar, I have an Attachments button. When I click the Attachments button, notice that now there are several other new buttons on my toolbar. I want to select the New OLE button, New OLE. This will allow me to attach an existing file from my computer. OLE stands for Object Linking and Embedding, in other words, attaching an electronic file. I will click the Create from File tab so that I can attach a file that is already on my computer, and click the Browse button. Site Manager displays a dialog box that allows me to browse through my computer to find the file I want to attach. Now I happen to have opened in the SM Files folder, and I want to select something from that folder. I'm looking for a cloverleaf.pdf file. Highlight that and click the Open button. I will now click the OK button, and this opens my OLE attachment screen. In the Name field, I'm going to enter a short name for the attachment. I'm going to type Cloverleaf. In the description, I can enter more information. I'm going to add Cloverleaf diagram. In the Attachment Security area, be sure to click the Add All button. This will allow all authorized users to see this attachment. And then click the Add button at the bottom of the window. And you can see that our attachment is now listed in the attachment window. Let's click Save. And if you look at your icon, the attachments icon now has a little paper clip on it that signifies that there is an attachment on this record. To open the attachment, I can simply double-click the row or highlight the row and click the Run Attachment button on the toolbar. And Site Manager will display the attachment file in Adobe Acrobat. There's my Cloverleaf. When you're finished reviewing your attachment, you can close the Acrobat file. I'll click on the File menu, and down at the bottom there's Exit and Return to with a file name. So we're back on the Maintain Sample Information window. I click the Attachments button to close my attachments list. I'll go ahead and save, and then I can click the Close button to close the Maintain Sample Information window. And I'm back on my sampling and testing pane. So we have looked at navigation and some functionality of Site Manager materials. Now let's exit Site Manager and go open the LIMS application. To exit Site Manager, I'll click the File menu and the Exit choice. You'll start LIMS in the same way you start Site Manager at GDOT, via Citrix and then the virtual applications. I will double-click the Site Manager LIMS training icon on my desktop. In my user ID field, I'll change that to Train01, and I'll type pass in lowercase in my password. For LIMS, I use the same user ID and password as I do for Site Manager, and click the OK button. Security groups are also the same in LIMS. I'm going to select the Vendor Producers and Labs security group, and you will click the appropriate group assigned to you by GDOT. Click the OK button. So on the navigation panel in LIMS, you'll have icons for the functions that are available to your group. We have View Only Sample Information, Receive Sample at Destination Lab, Receive Sample in Lab Unit, and Enter Test Results. We're going to review each of these topics in detail in later training videos. So for now, let's go ahead and exit LIMS. Click the File menu and Exit Application, and I'll click the Yes button. Am I sure I want to exit the application? Yes. So our next training topic is adding sample records in Site Manager.